Christy, thank you so much for being here with me on our podcast. I know we've been planning this for a while, and I'm really glad we were able to get together.
Well, I very much appreciate you having me.
So the first thing I just wanted you to talk about is a little bit about your company and, what you do, because I think that people listening would be really interested to hear about your line of work.
Okay. And maybe I should start maybe talking about a little bit about my background, because that's kind of what brought me to where I'm at right now. But I started out as I thought I was going to be an expat and that I was going to be working for a multinational company. And I went to graduate school at what is, I think it was called an IMBA, so an international MBA. At the time, there was only 2 schools that did that. So there was Thunderbird and the University of Denver. So I was in Colorado, so I went there. And as soon as I graduated, my first job out of school was a joint venture with the IMF and the World Bank, and they were giving microloans to small businesses in Costa Rica. So I thought I was going to be going to a very large company, and ended up working with very small artisans. And it was very rewarding work. And it basically, I think, put me sort of on track to, I've always worked with either in or with small and scaling companies. And so that was a great experience. And it was probably the first time that I really recognized that small things that you do to get better actually have pretty profound, or can have pretty profound outcomes. And so, you learn all this theory in school, but it was sort of a very hands-on practical application of things. So it took it from the classroom to, immediate sort of gratification. So since that point in time, what I do now is somewhat similar, just the gratification of seeing the impact is a little bit longer. But from there, I came back to the States and started working for, basically I was in industry. So I did construction. So I was in a steel manufacturing company. I also then went to plastic injection molding company. And so from some very weird twist of fate, I ended up in 2008 coming to Atlanta to work with what was at that time a startup, which was a registered investment advisory firm called BIP. And at that time, I had 0 experience in any of that. I certainly had not grown up with investments or, financial planning, any of those pieces, but I was very operationally minded. And that's what I was brought there for, is to put in sort of all the piping and to help build the firm. So I was definitely much more in an operational role. So we did that and built that. And then a few years later, then one of the offerings was venture capital. And so we were starting a small fund. So I came back to that side and started doing exactly the same thing. So putting in all the piping, building all the infrastructure, learning all the way through, because that was certainly things that I didn't have a lot of background in. But all things kind of look the same in terms of you have a process and you put things in place to make those things happen. And so those skills were pretty transferable. Then as we started making investments in companies, all the companies sort of needed help in some way, shape, and form. There was just a few of us there. And so I actually found great satisfaction in doing something different all the time. So I started leaning in and helping in all kinds of different ways, just kind of wherever they needed it. And through that process, we had one portfolio company where the founder got in some legal trouble. So I stepped in at that time as interim CEO. Then was at that time, we thought that would be like a couple years experience and that we would get the company stabilized and then bring in a different CEO. That 2 years ended up being 7. And it was a very humbling experience, and it was the most rewarding experience of my life. And I probably learned more in that 7 years than the cumulative of 27 before it. But it was, we got them to a really good place. And at the beginning of 23, so this year was a good time to sort of pass the baton, have a new CEO come in, and head back to BIP, where I was coming back to sort of put some formality around a process that's always been there, which is to lean in and help our portfolio companies, but put more structure around that and build a team that was very curated to the level of the companies and the earlier in their scaling, than maybe what you see in a private equity firm, but actually put in some infrastructure that helps us do that in a repeatable and for me was really important, a meaningful way. So that's what we're doing today.